So today we are going to talk about margins and indents. The indentation information I got from thoughtco.com. To review really quickly, we use the change case button to change case to whatever we want it to be. So sentence case is where the first letter is capitalized of each sentence. Lowercase is where everything is lowercase. Uppercase is where all the letters are uppercase. Capitalize each word is where the first letter of each word is capitalized. And toggle case is the opposite of capitalize each word, where the first letter is lowercase and all the other letters are uppercase. Monday we talked about line spacing. So this is the line spacing button. It is the arrow pointing up and down with lines next to it. You click on that to adjust the line spacing. The line spacing is the area in between the lines. So if you want to make something double space, you change line spacing. This is what I did not talk about on Monday that I wanted to make sure that I talked about today. So if I wanted to make something double spaced, I could very easily hit enter after each line. But it is not recommended to do it this way because once I change something in the line, it's going to mess up the spacing. So instead of pressing enter, you want to highlight the whole thing, click on the line spacing button, and then click on double space. And then we also talked about paragraph spacing. Paragraph spacing is the space between paragraphs. If I wanted to add space in between my paragraphs, I can either click on the line spacing and then add space after a paragraph. I can click on line spacing options to open the paragraph dialog box, or I can click on the paragraph launcher to open the paragraph dialog box. Or I can do page layout, the spacing area in the paragraph group, after I can type in 15 to give me that space also. Okay, so several different ways to add spacing after or before paragraphs. We have alignment, which makes text be flush with the left margin, be centered on the page, be flushed with the right margin, or justify, which means that is a box evenly flush between the left and the right margins. No jagged edges. And for justify, again, remember I said that the spacing between each word may be a little bit different. You know, the computer will automatically make spaces between words a little bit more or a little less so that it'll all fit and make it nice and smooth. As an example of alignment, we have right align. This first paragraph is centered. The second paragraph is left align. And the last paragraph is justify. Any questions before we move on? Changing a document's margins is one way to change the appearance of a document and control the amount of text that fits on a page. So if I have a 2-page document and my second page only has 10 words on it, I don't want to print out and waste that one paper for that 10 words. So I will adjust my margins and make them a little bit smaller so it'll fit on one page. The margins of a document are the blank areas between the edges of the text and the edge of the page. When you create a document in Word, the default margins are 1 inch at the top, bottom, left, and right sides of the page. So I have my blurb here again. The margins then is all of that yellow space. So the margin is the area between the edge of the page and the edge of my text. So all of this yellow space is my margin. We can adjust the document's margins by doing 4 different ways. So the first way is to use the margin button on the page layout tab. When you click on that margin button, these options will appear. You can click on custom margins and it'll open up the dialog box. Another option is to use the horizontal and vertical rulers. Here's my horizontal ruler. If I move my cursor, it goes from an I-beam pointer to a left and right arrow. If I click and I hold and I move that can adjust my margin. I can move my left margin. I can go and move my right margin. I can move my top margin. And then I can change my bottom margin. So you have to make sure I have the double arrows. So I can change my margins using the ruler. Another option is to click on the launcher to open the page setup dialog box. So you have the page layout and then the page setup group. You click on that launcher and it will give you the page setup dialog box. This is the same box that will appear if you were to click on custom margins. So here, this is where you would enter in your margins. So right now it's defaulted to 1 inch all around, top, left, right, bottom. You can change it to 0.25. Also in this page setup dialog box, you have your page orientation. So it's defaulted to portrait. You can change it to landscape. So portrait is where it is taller. Landscape, it's wider. You can also change the paper size. Again, it's defaulted to 8.5 by 11. So the paragraph alignments are left and right. If you open up the page setup dialog box, that alignment is for top to bottom. So you can also use my wonderful keyboard commands to change your margins. To access the page layout tab, you press Alt-P and then M for margins, and it'll open up that margin, the margin options, and then you use the arrow keys to select what you want and then press Enter. Any questions on margins? An indent is a space set in from the margin. So when you want to indent a paragraph, you move its edge in from the left or right margin. You can indent the entire left or the entire right of a paragraph, just the first line, or all lines except the first line. So there are 4 different indents that we're going to talk about. The indent markers, the horizontal ruler, indicate the indent settings for the paragraph in which the insertion point is located. It consists of 2 triangles and a rectangle. You also have this third one that's kind of on the side. But these 3, it looks like an hourglass. They are 3 separate indent markers. So the left indent controls the space between the paragraph and the left margin. To change it, click on the very bottom of the indent marker, which is the rectangle, and drag it to a new position. The right indent controls the space between the paragraph and the right margin and has a marker of its own. This is my right indent. It is indicated by a single triangle on the ruler at the right. Then I have something called a first line indent. It is used to indent the first line of a paragraph or of every paragraph. So when we type up papers, you have a first line indent. To change it, you click on the top triangle of the indent marker and move it to where you want the first line indent to be positioned. The hanging indent controls how the text of the paragraph lines up under the first line. So your first line is going to stay where it is. Everything else is going to move. So it's kind of like it's hanging on to the first line. You click and drag the second triangle, just the triangle, to apply the hanging indent. So here are the examples of indents. There's something called a negative indent, which is actually having the words go into the margin. I don't know when we would ever do that. I would just change the margin. But it's there, just FYI, but that's not something that you guys need to know about. We have the left indent. We have the right indent. we have the first line indent and then the hanging indent. So to change the indents, now that we know what they are, you can press tab at the beginning of the paragraph to indent the first line ½ inch. That's probably the most common way, the easiest way. When we start typing first, we hit tab and then we start typing. It'll give us that ½ inch indent. Every time I hit tab, it'll make the indent bigger by ½ inch increments. Other different ways to change the indentation, besides the tab key, is to drag the indent marker to the new location on the ruler. So that's what I was showing you guys with using the ruler. But you can also use the indent button on the paragraph group on the home tab. So these two buttons here are the indents. The arrow pointing to the right means that it will increase the indent. The arrow pointing to the left means that it will decrease the indent, right? It kind of gives you that directional increase, move it to the right, pointing to the right, decrease, pointing to the left, moving to the left. You can also change indents by changing the indent settings in the paragraph group on the page layout tab. So here is the spacing before and after paragraphs. Here is the indent spacing to the left or to the right. So you can also be more precise here if you wanted to. If you wanted to change it to 1 inch instead of 1/4 inch or ½ inch, whatever, you can. This is by centimeters though. And then the fourth way is our wonderful keyboard commands. So the keyboard command is Alt-H to access the Home tab, and then AO to decrease the indent, or AI to increase the indent. So our wonderful tab key, the tab key is used to make it ½ inch indent on the first line. If you keep pushing it, it'll increase that indent by ½ inch increments. You can move the insertion point every ½ inch, or you can move the insertion point to the next tab stop. Again, we're not going to talk about tab stops, but just know that you can use the tab key to do that.